Hello, this is the C3 Partners Meaningful Use Monitor demonstration. This is part one of a two-part clip.
Hello, and welcome to our demonstration of the features of the Meaningful Use Monitor. We call it MUM for short. MUM is our subscription-based tool that helps hospitals and physician groups through a rigorous, ongoing process of understanding their unique compliance position relative to the high-tech law's meaningful use monitoring needs. Here's a picture of how MUM starts. Our compliance dashboard highlights the status of logical groups of requirements for each relevant clinical department. Requirements are grouped together by legislative categories for certification, meaningful use, HIN connectivity, and quality reporting. And all of that gives your client, your compliance officer, the ability to appreciate really the collaborative aspects of this tool's ability to share responsibility for asserting and documenting compliance where appropriate. Your high-tech program manager will also appreciate the ability of the tool to easily organize shortfalls by requirement and identify where getting you compliant requires better EHR vendor and IT support, and other places where getting compliant requires changes in clinical and operational practices. We'll show you how that works in just a minute. So what we've done is created a hypothetical hospital that has realized that multiple clinical departments tend to be involved in a high-tech compliance scenario. For this hospital, their inpatient services, let's call this the row that defines all of the basic nursing wards, uses the Eclipsis Sunrise Acute Care EHR. But there are other departments where requirements might be allocated. So, for example, we know that there are some specific requirements relating to quality reporting unique to the emergency department, or unique to ICU, or unique to the OR. Then there are some other requirements that probably have to be answered across multiple different clinical departments. There's a requirement, for example, speaking to medication reconciliation at each transition of care, where each department is going to have a role in making sure that that requirement is fulfilled. So you can see that there are some requirements that could be identified to a specific individual department. There are some requirements that would be applicable to the many departments, and there are some requirements for which you can answer in one place across the entire hospital. And we've given the hospital compliance office the flexibility to do that. So now let's dive into some of the details here. This hospital has a compliance officer. We'll call her Jackie Ford, and Jackie Ford has arranged all of these different individuals responsible for asserting compliance with the department or with the requirements that she has assigned to them based on their clinical responsibilities. We're going to talk about Lester Hansen in the Department of Cardiology, who uses the GE Electric, the General Electric Centricity for Cardiology product. Lester has asserted that he's on a red, green, yellow basis. He's yellow for certification, meaningful use, and connectivity, and green on quality reporting. I'm going to come back to that quality reporting because I think he may not be as green as what he initially thought on that, and I'll show you why and what we'll do about that. But let's talk about that group of requirements that relates to the concept of meaningful use for Lester. He's graded himself yellow, and here's the rationale that he has summarized on the executive dashboard that the compliance officer and other executives in the hospital can see. Let's drill in. So at the detail level, going down, we've got here's Lester's dashboard for the Department of Cardiology and the criterion of meaningful use, and he said that he's yellow. And here's the status information that we saw on the executive dashboard. Of course, he can supplement that brief status with many lines or pages of information about his status to help keep track of where he is and where he thinks he's going and what are some of his problems and issues are. And if he's got problems and issues, he can create a strategy here that he can document a fairly long text string as well on what's his approach towards resolving any shortfalls that he has. So let's take a look at what are the detailed requirements that make up meaningful use for the Department of Cardiology. Well, Jackie Ford is, you see Jackie's name here, she's the compliance officer who's assigned these 4 individual requirements to Lester, and he's graded himself on them already. So on maintain active medication allergy, he's yellow, he's green for this one, he's yellow here, and he's yellow for this one as well. let's dive in at this last one and take a look at what are some of the details supporting that requirement. What MUM does is communicates by title. So here's the title for an individual requirement. What's the explicit regulatory language that we can pull out of the Federal Register or the proposed rule or the final rule as it becomes known? And we can show an awful lot of text in there that is unchangeable by the hospital and ties explicitly back to a particular page and table within the regulations that it comes from. But we've also provided a set of interpretations around what we think that rather terse language means relative to either other things that we've heard from other hospitals, things that we may have heard in conversations with CMS, or simply our expert advisory panel and other hospital people in looking at the requirement come up with what are some of the practical issues related to making sure that you are or are not in compliance with this particular item. Now, we publish this interpretation together with our guidelines for green, yellow, and red for hospitals evaluating themselves where they stand. But Jackie Ford, the compliance officer, before she publishes that detail out to the requirements, can amend these, she can replace them entirely, or she can accept them just the way we've written. And that's the way I think most of the time it will happen. So basically we've created a red, yellow, green set of guidelines where we said a department is red if they're missing some or all of the technology components that's necessary to be able to fulfill this requirement. But once they've got the technology in place, they're yellow until they have all the clinicians using the technology in an appropriate way. They've got good adoption. They're capturing their data. They've got all the interfaces and configurations done. Once they get to that point, then then a hospital and a department is green. In the case of this one, Lester has said he's yellow, and the reason he's yellow is 6 out of 35 of the cardiologists in his department are documenting real-time problem lists. But most of the balance still document back in eclipses, and some actually write notes and having their admin enter data in. So he's got a little bit of a ways to go, in spite of the fact that he has a couple of certified EHRs that he's using. The practices aren't sufficient yet for him to be able to say that, in fact, they're maintaining an up-to-date problem list. And he's probably got some work planned that he's got planned to do that. Let's take a look at one of the other neat features that happens here. If Lester's cardiologists are all maintaining active medication list, he's defined that he's green on this particular one. And look at one of the things that we've done here. HITECH creates a requirement for hospitals to qualify every single year. And in each year, once a hospital qualifies, they have to be able to retain the detailed documentary proof on each requirement for a period of 10 years afterwards that they actually were doing this particular thing in a compliant way in each year. So we're going to give Lester the ability to link to a particular document or store a particular document in a SharePoint site that ties to this active medication list in the year 2010 for the Department of Cardiology that provides the information that proves that he was in fact there. It's a feature that should give your compliance officer a lot of comfort when they're signing the attestation across the board for the entire hospital.
This is the end of the first part of our demonstration. The continued part 2 is located in the same file folder as this video.